What's up, guys, and welcome, Daily Theologians. What is Christian liberty? Can a Christian drink alcohol? Can a Christian smoke cigarettes? Can a Christian smoke marijuana? What role should the church take towards these types of issues? And where is too far? Where's the line? When does it become a false gospel? We need to stick around as we hear Dr. Al Mohler and Dr. MacArthur weigh in on this very important issue. Stick around and check this out. So where is the line? Well, I think a lot of people are confused on this, and more we're going to have to delineate between Christian liberty and gospel, and that line is going to be different for different people. So I want to explain what Christian liberty is at the end. We'll go into that in depth, but first I want to start with a panel with Dr. Al Mohler and Dr. MacArthur talking about where is the line in regard to marijuana.
That marijuana legalization is coming perhaps to all states. Is smoking pot a sin? Yes or no?
On that one, I'll give you a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Mohler. And I'll let you tell us why, because what I'd like you to do is give me a yes or no, and then I want you to give me your theological case for that.
At the same time?
No.
Yes.
It's a sin.
It's a sin.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dr. MacArthur?
Yes, absolutely.
Build a theological case, because I'm not aware of a Bible verse that says you should not smoke a big fat doobie. Right? There's no Bible verse that says that. So how do you build the case?
Todd,
Paul says all things are lawful, but I will not be brought under the power of any. And the answer to the question is, people say, well, it's no different than drinking alcohol. You can drink alcohol and not have your mind altered. You can't smoke a joint without having your mind altered. That's the purpose of it. You've yielded up control to an external force that's been taken internal. It has the sole purpose to alter your consciousness, to diminish your responsibility, to diminish your accountability, to diminish you at every level of thinking, which then diminishes you at every level of function. It has no other purpose. It's compared to drinking, but it's not the same, because you can, have a glass of wine at dinner and it doesn't alter your consciousness at all. But when you smoke a joint, that is the sole purpose of doing that. And that then yields up control or I should say, it releases your self-control, and that's always a sin.
Right?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that's the very verse that I thought of, along with the fact that the Scripture just routinely, throughout, pervasively, condemns intoxication. Yeah. Where it doesn't roundly condemn, obviously, what it would classify as wine and other things. When you start to put it into context, you realize what's being discussed there, even the biblical etymology, look at the context. The warnings against intoxication mean that whatever you may drink lawfully and enjoy lawfully, and Paul would say to Timothy, is good for your health, is not something that leads to intoxication. Intoxication is itself a big problem. Christianity Today has an editorial out on this week, suggesting that it would not be that Christian freedom should extend to the freedom to smoke marijuana, but Christian judgment should extend to not doing that. I think the big problem is, one of the arguments there is that whatever God gives us is good. We don't condemn any good thing, but God didn't give us a marijuana plant and say, roll this up and smoke it. In other words, God's purpose to give us something for its intended end is good. It's just hard to justify that. Colorado's new tourism motto, by the way, is come to Colorado, you'll forget to leave.
By the way, all right, and none of us will know whether to applaud this or to give a deep sigh. How's about the Girl Scout cookie salesperson, the little girl selling Girl Scout cookies outside of the pot store in Denver? Part of you wants to go, wow, and the other part wants to go, well, that's brilliant, because who else wants Girl Scout cookies more?
before the legalization of so-called recreational marijuana, they had medical marijuana
Right.
in Colorado, and even then, there were more marijuana distributorships in Denver than Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
Wow.
And that tells you a great deal where this is going. By the way, your governor suggested in recent days that it might not be smart for the entire state of California to be stoned because it could have a bad impact on the economy. But he went on and said, but we have medical marijuana, which is about the same thing. And I just want to tell you that I was, some years ago, when I was here for this conference, I was having dinner in Santa Monica, and there was a stand set up with someone who I guess is an MD sitting behind it, and you could come and say, I have a hangnail, and get a prescription for medical marijuana.
Then let me ask this question. We were all assuming we're talking about recreational use, medicinal use of marijuana. Am I opposed to that as a Christian?
I want to suggest you shouldn't be opposed to medical marijuana any more than you should be opposed to medical penicillin. Medical penicillin isn't available at Santa Monica Beach and a pier from a guy with a beard and a tie-dye t-shirt. So if it is being handled by the medical establishment according to medical means of the American Medical Association, which, by the way, condemns the use of marijuana in this way. In other words, if it's regulated, we wouldn't want half the stuff sold at the pharmacy available for any kind of use. You could just go get it at the pier. And so much of the talk about medical marijuana is an emotivist camouflage of the real issue. And
So Dr. Mohler is correct. It is a bait and switch. It's an emotive appeal, like, hey, look at its medical use here. We've proved the case. Now just kind of it's normal, and it's the attempt to normalize something. Now, I don't think this issue is necessarily clear cut for every Christian. I think this could be a matter of conscience, especially in regard to the medical side of it. I think there's a strong case for that sort of use if someone's dealing with lots of pain. The problem is that's a slippery slope into a free-for-all with the guy with the tie-dye shirt selling it on the pier, as Dr. Mohler indicated. So we have to use discernment in this issue, and we have to understand the basis of our justification is the life, death, burial, and resurrection of the God-man Jesus Christ. We have to understand what Christian liberty is. So let's look at that from Dr. MacArthur.
Thinking about Christian liberties can be a challenge for young people. First of all, let me suggest that you not approach it on a negative level. What can I not do? How far can I push this deal? Where's the edge? Where's the limit? How far can I go and sort of extend my freedom and my right? That's not the way you approach it. You approach it from a completely different perspective. What can I do that brings honor to Christ? What can I do that sets an example for others to follow in the way of righteousness and holiness? What can I do that, if it becomes habit forming, will conform me more to Christ? Those are the questions you want to ask. If I do this, will it benefit me spiritually? If I do this, will it benefit others spiritually? If I do this, will it enrich me? If I do this, will it cultivate a pattern in my life that's going to lead me toward godliness? Yeah, you have to be very careful about your freedom because, as Peter said, you can use your freedom as a cloak for iniquity. You can use your freedom as a covering for a desire to sin. So you have to approach it positively. What is going to produce in you virtue, godliness, Christian character, integrity, and make your life a model that all others can follow? That's the approach you have.
That's the right way to view Christian liberty. Instead of the negative, how far can I go? What will honor God? What will glorify God? What will conform me to the image of God? And maybe you need outside influence from a pastor. Maybe you need someone to speak into this issue. And understanding Christian liberty is not going to be a straight line because for some people, this issue is going to conjure up times before they were saved. It's going to put them in a bad place around bad influences, bad habits, things that are just not going to be wise or even beneficial and even probably sinful. So you have to use discretion on this issue and where you fall with Christian liberty. It's not a black and white issue in every area. I think Dr. Mohler handled it very well when he said it alters the mind, and the whole idea is to be intoxicated. I think that is a clear biblical line that you can say, if your mental state is altered to this level, then it's going to be a sin, and that is where this type of drug, or any drug for recreational purposes, is going to be harmful, sinful. And the other thing to remember is, just because something exists does not mean it was intended for consumption. There are a lot of poisonous animals out there you don't want to go and mess with just because they exist. Remember, we live in a cursed world, and that's not something they brought up, but I think it's relevant in the discussion of Christian liberty, because things like alcohol can be done with moderation. I think communion is an example of this, where churches use grape juice, and perhaps should consider alcohol, but they're trying to be conscientious of people's conscience, which is a tongue twister. So they're trying to consider that, and it's understandable why. But when we look at this issue, we have to look at what is wise, and what does history say, and then what does the Bible say in regard to Christian liberty. So here is the London Baptist Confession. The liberty Christ has purchased for believers under the gospel is found in their freedom from the guilt of sin. So that's number one. The condemning wrath of God is gone, and the severity of the curse of the law is removed. It is also included in their deliverance from this present evil age, bondage to Satan, the dominion of sin, suffering of afflictions, and the fear and sting of death, the victory of the grave and everlasting damnation. Those are removed, Romans 8:1-3. In addition, it includes their free access to God and their obedience to him, not from slavish fear, but from a childlike love and willing mind. That's the difference, the conformed heart and mind. But it goes further. Those who use Christian liberty as an excuse to practice any sin or nurture any sinful desire pervert the main objective of the grace of the gospel to their own destruction. And this is what MacArthur was referencing there. They completely destroy the purpose of Christian liberty. This purpose is that we, having been delivered from the hands of all our enemies, may serve the Lord without fear. Underline that, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. We are servants, we're slaves, we're doulos of Christ. And so the motive is a positive motive, not a negative, how far can I go? It's a matter of conscience to some I can't say conscience to some extent, but there is wisdom here, and there is a heart posture that is the core issue. It's always about the heart. People want rules and things like that, but it's always about the heart informing the will, the mind, all those things working together to produce a righteous life for the glory of God. You see, this issue is not as cut and dry as people would have it be, and you have to be careful not to fall into legalism. Here's what I mean. Though we walk in the flesh, we're not waging war according to the flesh. The weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive to obey Christ. Where do these actions come from? Where do these desires come from for these types of mind-altering things? Well, it's a thought from the will that can be good or can be sinful. And that is where the line is. The intoxication line, again, I think by Dr. Al Mohler, is a good line. However, if someone you know that's a Christian responsibly drinks alcohol, does not cause others to stumble, doesn't flaunt it, which I think is not wise. This is popular in the young, restless, and reform crowd, or whatever that was, where they go out to a pub and they get some beers and with the guys, and you know what? That's foolish. You're causing people to stumble. You're flaunting something they don't understand, and often you're doing it thinking you're mature when really you're very immature. It's very immature, and the same is true with the cigar club and the drinking. And I'm not saying you can't do those things. I'm just saying love would say don't cause others to stumble, and they don't understand why you're doing that. And if you're doing it publicly to flaunt grace and causing others to stumble and not understand the gospel, that's a problem. Now, none of us are going to do this perfectly. And again, if somebody does that, the point isn't to go point fingers and yell at them, but I think it's usually immature or someone that is likely trending towards antinomianism to flaunt their liberty and say, look how free we are. Look what we can do. Come join us because look how free we are. And that's not the gospel. The gospel is repent and believe in the life, death, burial, and resurrection of the God-man, Jesus Christ. And that's what we have to always keep in front of us. We are not worthy of God's grace. We are the recipients of God's grace. He lived a perfect sinless life in your place that you could never live, no matter how sincerely you seek to uphold your conscience in this area. He went to the cross, paid an infinite hell debt, died, and rose. So we must put all of our trust in that and then work out our salvation, walk out that salvation, which we've been justified, and now we are being sanctified. We're walking out that until ultimately glorification. So this is a process. And more, I think we're going to see more issues on the horizon, like artificial intelligence, like human modifications, like genetic altering of babies, and just all kinds of crazy things. And this idea of Christian liberty is going to be front and center. And I think Christian liberty really applies to the most recent lockdowns and things of that nature, because I think there were a lot of mistakes where Christian liberty was used as a cover-up for fear, for actually doing the right thing, preaching the gospel, meeting. You guys get the drift. So let me know what you think below. Again, I'm not taking a hard position on this because I think it is complex. I think it's a difficult one, but I think that line of intoxication is a good line that Al Mohler drew. Let me know what you think below in the comments. And don't forget to take a moment and hammer that like button. Like the 95 Theses. Thank you so much and have a great day. God bless.